Hello and welcome to your Fairy God Mentor. This is the show that inspires, encourages, educates, and supports expectant couples who desire to confidently navigate pregnancy, birth, and finding balance in an unbalanced world. I am Angie Taylor, the mother of 9 with 2 degrees in natural health. I'm also a birth insider, knowing the ins and outs of the birth industry and all of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've worked with expectant couples since 2003 in a variety of roles, including birth educator, birth doula, home birth midwife, breastfeeding support, and life coaching. Sit back and enjoy hearing about all the things you never knew you never knew. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Your Fairy God Mentor. I am Angie Taylor, and I'm going to share with you my thoughts on licensing and certification, especially as it pertains to midwives, but also in general. And the reason that I'm sharing this with you is because the topic of conversation keeps coming up. We've been led to believe that when somebody is licensed and certified, that it proves that they are competent in what they are doing. As somebody who has been an insider in the birth industry, as a childbirth educator, a birth doula, and a home birth midwife, it is actually quite appalling to me how low the bar is set when it comes to proving competence, especially in regards to a tiny human coming into the world. One of the things I've learned is that licensing nor certification proves competence. I also have learned that lack of licensing and or certification also does not prove incompetence. Let me share a case in point, one that's very close to my heart. December 11th, 2000, a birth happened in my room here at my home. It was my grandson. He was born still. I want to go into all of the things that had the potential to create this scenario. My son and daughter-in-law were living in a different state than I was, so I was not their primary caregiver for the majority of the pregnancy. We had wanted it to be that way, but it didn't turn out that way. My daughter-in-law's mother insisted that she hire a licensed and certified midwife in her state. And I can understand where that comes from. It's the misinformation that someone who is not licensed or certified is therefore incompetent. I am not licensed, nor am I certified. I am also living in a state where there's no place for me to become licensed or certified because it is not a requirement of the state. So because it is not a requirement of the state also does not make me incompetent. At any rate, I helped my daughter-in-law and son locate a midwife near them who was both licensed by the state they were living in and certified by a national midwifery organization. A woman who also graduated from the same midwifery training institute that I attended. So I know what she was supposed to know. Everything seemed to be going fine. I would check in every now and then, but again, I was not the primary midwife. I was not going to take over there. I would ask questions, how are things going with the pregnancy? Oh, everything's good, different things like that. Then at 35 weeks gestation, I received a phone call from my daughter-in-law. She was all panicked. The midwife was dropping care because she had swelling about her feet and ankles. Now, we've all been led to believe that that is normal in pregnancy, and sadly, the normalcy comes from incorrect or incomplete information in regards to prenatal nutrition, because swelling during pregnancy, regardless of where you are in the pregnancy, is not normal. So the midwife that she had hired had told them that swollen ankles were outside of her scope of practice. The reason I take a pause there is because as a society, we have been taught that swelling is normal. So why would it be outside the scope of practice of a midwife if it's normal? My daughter-in-law's blood pressure was going up, so there was an assumption being made that she was experiencing pregnancy-induced hypertension and possibly preeclampsia. To my knowledge, the midwife did nothing to confirm either. Through an ultrasound, it was confirmed that my grandson was breech. Before you panic, breech is a normal presentation, not a variation of normal, but one of two normal presentations for birth. Humans either come into the world head first or feet or bottom first. Neither of those requires panic or emergency anything. This midwife's licensing did not allow for her to attend a breech birth at home. So that was another reason that she was dropping them as clients. My daughter-in-law had a very strong intuitive hit that this child was to be born outside of the hospital. So they moved from where they were to our home. I went up there and spent a week with them getting them ready. And in the 2 days of travel and the first day that I was there, so in 3 days, giving her specific instructions as to what she needed to do in regards to nutrition to help lower her blood pressure and alleviate the swelling. Within 3 days, her swelling was gone, so much so that her shoes were too big, and her blood pressure was back to normal. I know that this other midwife knew how to do that. I know that. So as I was sitting with my son and daughter-in-law, and they were packing up what they would be able to take with them and selling off the rest of the items to help pay for their last-minute move, I started asking questions, such as, well, what kind of conversations did you have about prenatal nutrition? What about urinalysis? How was your blood pressure taken? There was no discussion about prenatal nutrition whatsoever. There was never a urinalysis dip done. And blood pressure was done the moment that the midwife got there, and the midwife was there for 20 minutes. Now, let me explain to you why there may be an issue there. During pregnancy especially, blood pressure should never be taken immediately upon arriving at the OB's office or the midwife's office. And this is because you've been up and walking around, so your blood pressure is going to be elevated. There's also the pressure and stress that your blood pressure may be elevated, which elevates your blood pressure. So it's best to sit and chat for 15 to 20 minutes before taking a blood pressure. And it is best for a woman to be sitting with both feet on the floor. This is true of everybody. You get the most accurate reading when you are seated and you are calm and relaxed when your blood pressure is taken. Okay? This is also true if you decide to go to a pharmacy and take your own blood pressure. Take some time to sit and relax before taking your blood pressure. Otherwise, it's going to be elevated. Okay? So this was their reality. My daughter-in-law shared with me a couple of weeks after they moved back how active her son had become in utero. And I thought to myself, what do you mean? He should have always been active. She's like, no, he's hardly moved at all during the entire pregnancy. And I asked, did you mention that to your midwife? And was told, yes, I did. She told me it was normal. Little to no movement over the course of a pregnancy of the tiny human is not normal. It is cause to check in and see what's going on. So we continued on with the prenatal care and just looked forward to the birth. My daughter-in-law's bag of water broke on her estimated due date. Everything was going well. Baby was active, baby was moving, listened to the heartbeat several times over the course of the birthing process. I had an apprentice here with me. Baby was moving, Like I said, heard the heartbeat multiple times. As the baby started coming and we were looking, the baby was breech. At one point during the last few weeks, we were able to get the heartbeat low underneath the belly button, and it felt like the baby was head down, but he was not. He was still breech. It was an uncomplicated breech. Those who have attended breech births understand what that means. Basically, that means that there was no need for us to help him at all. He first released one foot, and we could see goosebumps on that little leg, even though the room was as warm as we could get it. And my daughter-in-law pushed that little boy out without a problem. And I say little boy, but he really wasn't little, but we didn't know that at that time. But once he was out, he laid still. And we started neonatal resuscitation. And we called 911. And we had EMTs come. And we had EMTs help us fight for his life. He never took a breath. Because he was born in a home setting, there was an autopsy done, complete with cutting him open, checking his brain, checking everything, sending tissue and blood samples off, looking for any reason. What is the reason that he was born still? Now, when it came time for my daughter-in-law to birth the placenta, it wasn't happening. This is very common in these situations because this is the last piece that belongs to the baby. And emotionally, it's very challenging for the mom to let go when they know they've already lost their baby. So, packed my daughter-in-law up, took her to the hospital where they had taken her son. And they check on her. There's no signs of infection. There's no fever, no symptoms whatsoever. They transfer her to a larger hospital, and an obstetrician does a D&C to remove the placenta and the membranes and fails to send the placenta to pathology. The coroner, the medical examiner, determined through all of the tests and all of the things that first, my grandson was 12 pounds. I'll come back to that. Second, his position had nothing to do with his death. Third, the location of his birth had nothing to do with his death. His death is from unknown cause. Now let's go back to the weight. 12 pounds. And look at the lack of prenatal nutrition training and teaching. Was my daughter-in-law an undiagnosed diabetic? Is that why her baby reached 12 pounds? Was it due to lack of prenatal nutrition information? Because of a midwife licensed by her state and certified by a national organization had failed to teach prenatal nutrition. Was that the reason? We will never know, ever. So when people talk to me about the importance of hiring somebody who is licensed by their state, or at least certified by this national organization, I have to cry malarkey, simply because I know amazing midwives who are neither licensed nor certified. And I know some very scary midwives who are both licensed and certified. So, licensing and certification does not prove competence. Lack of licensing and certification does not prove incompetence. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. To learn more about me, your fairy god mentor, simply go to angietaylorfairygodmentor.com.